Today we're going to look at some different parts of a circle. Now there's some parts of the circle that you already know. These 4 pictures show you the parts of a circle that you already know. So can you remember the name for the red line in picture number 1? That's a radius. It goes from the centre to the edge. And sometimes people write that as a line segment, because it's part of a line, that goes from the centre to the circumference, because it goes from the centre to the circumference. Sometimes you might see people say edge, and sometimes they'll say to the circumference. So really read the words carefully on the work that you get given. Okay, the picture underneath. Number 2. What do we call that red line? That red line is called the diameter. And it's exactly the same as the line above, except it goes from one edge of one point on the circumference to another point. The thing about the diameter is it has to go through the centre. So if you have a line going across a circle and it goes through the centre of the circle, it will be the diameter. So the radius is from the centre to the edge. The diameter is from one side of the circumference to the other, and it goes through the centre. What about number 3? What do we call that distance all the way around the circle, around the edge of the circle? I've already used the word, and that is called the circumference. It's kind of like a fancy name for the perimeter of a circle. And what do you think about number 4? You learnt this one as well. This is just part of the circumference. This one is called an arc. So an arc is part of the circumference. Now you have learned all 4 of these before. What we're going to look at today is 4 new words as well. These 4 words, if you can't remember them, if you didn't remember them, if you need to write them down, please pause the video and do that now. The first new word I'm going to introduce you to is this green area in here, and it is called a sector. And I just want you to notice a few things. So a sector looks like a slice of cake. Okay, so that's one way to remember it. A sector looks like a slice of cake. But let's have a look at what parts of a circle it's made up of. So we create a sector when we draw 2, and we say radii. We don't say radiuses, we say radii. When we draw 2 radii, we create a sector like those red lines there. So the thing to remember if you have a sector is this is a radius and this is a radius, which means they're equal in length. Okay, so have a think about that again. What we've got is 2 radii, this one here and this one here, and that means they are equal in length, and that's what those little lines show. Now sometimes what they do in these pictures is they make a triangle. And what type of triangle would that be? That would be an isosceles triangle. But most of the time, and the thing we're bothered about today, is this thing that's called a sector. And when you're looking at these pictures, you've got to be really careful about what you're looking at. In this picture, I'm looking at that green space, that green area. I'm not looking at the lines, although I know the lines are radiuses, radii. I'm not looking at those lines, I'm looking at the green section, the sector. So when you're answering questions, please make sure you look at where the arrow is pointing. Is it pointing at the area in that space, or is it pointing at a particular line? But this green section, this slice of cake, is a sector. And it's made up when 2 radii join with the circumference, remember, or join with an arc. So remember that bit there is called an arc. That is 1 radius, that is 2 radius, which makes a radii. Pause this and write that all down in your book now. That's what you need to write. That's a sector is the area enclosed, that means it just makes a shape, by an arc and 2 radii. And you always need to remember those radii, they're the same length. Next one, and I'm only going to do this really quickly. What's this shape? Oh, you know this shape. That's right, it's just what you thought it was. It's a semicircle. Yeah, semicircle, semi kind of means half. You have semi-detached houses, that means there's 2 of them. So the sort of half of it is one house. But semicircle, that means half a circle. I don't really need to explain that. The only thing to remember about this one is there is a diameter that goes across there. In a semicircle, the straight line will be the diameter. This outside bit is still called an arc. It's just an arc that's half of a circle. So you've got a diameter and an arc. When you put them together, you've got a semicircle. Next, we're looking at this red line. This red line just touches the edge of the circle. It doesn't go into the circle, but it is touching it. And this line is called a tangent. There is a lot of work done at high level maths with tangents. They come into graphs, they come into all sorts of things. But we're just looking at this on a circle, and it's a line, straight line segment that just touches the edge of the circle. Okay, so a tangent is a line that touches the edge of a circle. Remember, often some people use, instead of the word edge, they'll use the word circumference. So it's a line that just touches the circumference of a circle. Now the next picture is this line here. This line is, it's a little bit like a diameter, but what's different? Why is that not a diameter? A diameter has to go through the middle of the circle. This is the same idea because it's going from one edge of the circle to the other, from one part of the circumference to the other, but it's not going through the centre. And because it's not going through the centre, it has a special name called a chord. And sometimes when people don't know what that word is, they say chord. Chord isn't the word, it's called a chord. So a chord goes from one part of the circumference to another, and it does not go through the edge. So a chord is a line that touches the circumference at each end. So each end of the line touches the circumference, and it does not go through the centre. Just pause the video and write that down now. Now this picture is very similar to the one before. It also has a chord in it, just here. But we're not looking at that chord, we're looking at this green section. We're looking at the name of that green area in the shape. And that part of a circle is called a segment. And a segment is made up, it's an enclosed area that's a chord and an arc. It's the area enclosed by a chord and an arc. Remember, enclosed just means those lines join up and they make a shape. Pause the video and write the definition down now. A segment is the part of a circle that's enclosed by a chord and an arc. Just say one more time what I mean by that. There's the chord and there's the arc. So that green section is a segment. We do also have another segment here because that's also enclosed by a chord and an arc. So when I draw a chord on a circle, I actually get two segments. I get one big one and one small one. But all you have to do when you're looking at your pictures are work out what they're asking you for. Are they asking you for a particular line, or are they asking you for a particular part or area of a circle? This one's a segment, the area enclosed by a chord and an arc. Pause the video, write that down now if you haven't already. So just to finish off, we're going to look at some of the names that we've remembered. So first of all, I'm looking at this green line. What's that one called? That's a radius. Now I'm going to look at this red line. What's that one called? That's your diameter. Now I'm going to look at this yellow section. This yellow section is an area enclosed by one radius. I'll do that in blue. One radius and another radius and part of an arc. What do we call the area that's enclosed by two radii and an arc? We call that a sector. Next, I'm going to look at this purple line. What do we call this purple line? That's the line that just touches the edge of the circle. We call that a tangent. Make sure you've got that written down. Now I'm going to look at the blue line all the way around the edge of the circle. What do we call that measurement all the way around the edge of the circle? We call that circumference, and we already knew that one. And what do we call this purple line here? So it's going from one part of the circumference to another, but it's not going through the centre. So what do we call it? We call that one a chord. What do we call this red line here? Part of the circumference. We call that one an arc. And what do we call this light green area here? It's the area enclosed by a chord and an arc. We call that a segment. So if you want to screenshot this bit now, this will help you remember all the different parts of a circle. It might be worth looking back at it when you do the quiz that you're about to do. There's lots of words. They are difficult to remember. They are easy to mix up. So make sure you've got some sort of picture or explanations to what each part is before you do the quiz. It's an IDOCIO quiz. So go and do the IDOCIO quiz now, following the instructions on the task. Hopefully see you soon.